the clause. Thank you.
Tony Barr.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm glad to support a bill put forward by the only party which is serious about reforming our criminal justice system. I say this as a barrister with 19 years' experience, and I draw your attention to the register of interest. Having been in full-time practice right up until last July's elections, I saw firsthand the chaos in our prisons, the leaking and inadequate court buildings, and the overstretched probation officers, criminal barristers and others who were doing more for less in increasingly challenging circumstances. This bill is critical so we can deliver meaningful justice for victims, protect them more effectively, punish perpetrators and rehabilitate offenders so they become better citizens, not better criminals. We often talk about the government's inheritance from the Conservatives, but I would argue that the prison and probation system is the area of the public realm that is most affected by the Tories and where they did most damage. They had 14 years and they created 500 prison places, as the Lord Chancellor said. The number of frontline prison officers fell by 31%, and they decimated the probation service. Their so-called transforming rehabilitation reforms, which privatised part of the probation service, resulted in taxpayers bailing out failing private companies with £467 million of public money. There is nothing more serious than ensuring law and order, and the Conservatives became the party of lawlessness and disorder. It will take time to fix our prison and probation system, and this bill begins this vital work. There is so much I strongly support in this bill. I particularly welcome the commitment in the bill to transition to an earned progression model for standard determinate sentences inspired by reforms in Texas. There, as we heard, crime is at record lows. And it's important to stress that the behaviour of prisoners will impact their release. The principle on which this reform is based, that offender risk is relevant to how long they will stay in prison, is sound. If they reoffend and breach the terms of release, under this system, the system will come down on them like a ton of bricks. The inescapable fact is that we send too many people to prison who then become better criminals. The point of prison is, of course, to face punishment as part of taking personal responsibility for their actions. But most people in prison, I believe, can be rehabilitated. People must be accountable for their actions without us becoming cynical about human nature. I also strongly support other measures in this bill, such as the expansion of tagging to monitor offenders in the community, which, as the Lord Chancellor said, has been shown to cut crime. Another measure I strongly support is the streamlining of deportation for foreign national offenders. I have a recent constituency example which shows why. In June, 3 men from Folkestone and Dover were convicted of raping a child and committed related sexual offences. They were together sentenced to around 54 years imprisonment. It was an utterly horrendous case. They were foreign nationals. Under existing laws, they can only be deported after serving the minimum term of their custodial sentence, which is often between around a third and half of it. But why should the British taxpayer foot the bill for their incarceration here for the next 7, 8, 9 years while our prisons are at capacity? Clause 32 of this bill answers that question by allowing the Home Office to remove the offender from prison at any time and subject them to deportation action irrespective of how long they've spent in prison here. I support this common sense measure, which could have been enacted by the party opposite, yet another example of a measure that could have been enacted by the party opposite, but yet was not. Yes, I'll take the intervention.
Despite the party political edge on the honourable gentleman's remarks, I'd like to ask him a serious question, and that is this. Presumably, there need to be safeguards to ensure that when people are deported before they have served their sentence, that sentence will actually be served in the country to where they are deported. Can he explain to the House what sort of guarantees there will be that these people will not get off scot-free after deportation? I'm sure there must be some such safeguards.
I don't think anyone is suggesting that people are going to leave their sentence early from the UK and just walk free in their country of origin. There is existing a whole range of rules around that, around prisoner transfer agreements, etc., which will apply in any event. But this is perhaps a measure that the honourable member can take up in committee. But I have no doubt whatsoever that that measure, which will still be subject to the safeguards which are already in existence, whether in the deportation process or in the justice process, so that justice is done. That is the whole point of this bill. So, look, there is much that I would welcome, Madam Deputy Speaker, in this bill, and I would like to ask the Minister, though, a few questions. How can we keep the strongest possible safeguards in place for victims while transitioning to more community sentences? How can we ensure that our probation service is well-resourced and able to support the expansion of community sentences? And what additional measures are ministers looking into to support more effective rehabilitation of prisoners who have addiction and mental health conditions? Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome this bill. It's a serious and radical response to our prisoners' crisis, as well as to our crisis of reoffending, which is costing our society more and more in every way, in every day. And I would invite members to vote for this bill today.
Sarah Perchin.